Welcome back to my YouTube channel, LC Coins World, where we journey through history one coin at a time. Today, we are going to explore in depth the long, detailed professional history of the 2025 half dollar coin. And this will not just be a short overview, but rather a deep dive into the coin's origins, its design, its minting process, the social and economic backdrop of its release, and its place within the broader narrative of United States coinage so that you can fully appreciate why the 2025 half dollar deserves a place in numismatic history and why collectors and enthusiasts alike should pay attention to it. The story of the half dollar in America stretches back to the very early years of the United States Mint. The denomination was introduced in 1794, and over the centuries, it has seen many redesigns, shifts in composition, and changes in popularity. The half dollar was once among the most widely circulated coins in American commerce, but gradually its role declined as inflation changed the purchasing power of smaller denominations by the mid to late 20th century. The half dollar had largely disappeared from everyday use, yet it continued to be minted both for collectors and for ceremonial purposes. By the time we reached the 21st century, the half dollar had taken on a new role. It was no longer a workhorse coin in circulation, but rather a piece of heritage and symbolism connecting Americans with their monetary past. The Kennedy half dollar, introduced in 1964, after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy, remained the dominant design well into the 2000s, and the coin became more of a collector's item than a circulating piece. However, the year 2025 marked an important chapter in the evolving story of this denomination and its enduring cultural resonance. The 2025 half dollar can be understood only by first recognizing the historical forces of the early 2020s. The United States and the world had gone through tremendous shifts in technology, finance, and society. Cryptocurrency, digital transactions, and cashless economies were becoming more common, but at the same time there was a renewed appreciation for physical coins among collectors, historians, and those who cherished tangible links to America's past. The United States Mint recognized this demand and continued to produce half dollars largely in collector sets, rolls, and bags, rather than releasing them in general circulation. The design of the 2025 half dollar continues the legacy of the Kennedy half dollar, featuring the left-facing bust of President John F. Kennedy on the obverse, designed by Gilroy Roberts. The obverse design has become one of the most iconic portraits in all of American numismatics, representing not just the man but the era of hope, aspiration, and leadership that Kennedy symbolized. For the nation, despite being 6 decades removed from Kennedy's presidency, the image still resonates deeply with Americans, particularly with older generations, who remember the 1960s and the turning points of that era. On the reverse of the coin, the heraldic eagle designed by Frank Gasparo remains a striking and patriotic image, with the eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch representing both strength and peace. This design has stood the test of time for over half a century and continues to embody the American spirit of resilience and unity. While many modern coins have seen redesigns or limited edition motifs, the half dollar has retained its classic look, providing a sense of stability and continuity in a rapidly changing world. The minting process of the 2025 half dollar demonstrates the advances in coin production technology over the years. In the earliest days of the mint in the 18th and 19th centuries, half dollars were struck by hand and dies were prone to wear and variation. In the 2025 issue, by contrast, the precision of computer-aided engraving and high-speed presses allowed the United States Mint to produce coins with exacting consistency. Proof versions struck at the San Francisco Mint feature mirrored fields and frosted devices, making them especially appealing to collectors, while circulation strikes were primarily produced at the Denver and Philadelphia mints. For coin collectors and numismatists, the 2025 half dollar carries a special significance because it represents the endurance of the denomination. Across centuries, though its role in daily commerce has diminished, the half dollar has carved out a place in collections and in commemorative issues. The 2025 release is not about face value, but about history, heritage, and artistry. The numismatic value of this coin is tied not only to its condition and rarity, but also to the way it reflects the story of America itself. To put the 2025 half dollar into perspective, we should compare it with Earlier milestones in the denomination's history. The flowing hair half dollar of 1794 was the very first design featuring liberty with flowing hair on the obverse and a small eagle on the reverse. Then came the draped bust, the capped bust, and later the seated liberty, each design reflecting artistic tastes and national identity of its time. The Barber half dollar, introduced in 1892, carried the neoclassical imagery popular at the end of the 19th century, and the walking liberty half dollar, struck from 1916 to 1947, remains one of the most beautiful designs in American coinage. When the Franklin half dollar replaced it in 1948, the nation shifted to a more modern style, and then in 1964 with the Kennedy half dollar, the coin took on its most lasting identity. The 2025 issue stands as a continuation of that Kennedy legacy, and at the same time as a marker of America's evolving approach to money and memory. For older collectors, it is a reminder of the days when half dollars still turned up in pocket change for younger collectors. It is a symbol of history preserved in metal, a chance to hold a piece of continuity in a world increasingly defined by digital transactions. Widely recognized coins of the 20th century, the 1776 to 1976 D. Kennedy half dollar, often referred to as the bicentennial half dollar. This coin is not just a piece of circulating currency, it is a piece of American history, frozen in metal, that connects directly to the nation's 200th birthday celebration. The story behind this coin is rich, complex, and powerful enough to carry us through hours of discussion, because it ties together history, politics, artistry, symbolism, and the very culture of America in the mid-1970s. The coin itself was struck to honor the 200th anniversary of American independence. The year 1976 was monumental as the United States celebrated its bicentennial with parades, fireworks, festivals, and patriotic displays across every state. The government decided that a major way to mark the bicentennial would be through the redesign of circulating coinage. The Kennedy half dollar, which had already been an iconic coin since 1964, when it was first minted following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, was chosen along with the quarter and the dollar to receive a special, commemorative reverse design. This was a moment in history when the United States Mint was not just producing money but creating a piece of art and heritage that would be cherished by millions of Americans. The obverse of the bicentennial half dollar continued to feature the profile portrait of John F. Kennedy, designed by Gilroy Roberts, a portrait that by 1976 had become one of the most familiar faces in American pocket change. However, the reverse was given a completely new design created by Seth G. Huntington. The design depicts Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the place where the Declaration of Independence was debated and signed in 1776. This imagery is deeply symbolic, because Independence Hall is more than just a building. It represents the birth of the nation, the place where a collection of colonies declared themselves free from Britain and set forth on the path to becoming the United States of America. Above the hall are the words United States of America and the denomination half dollar, while beneath it are the words 200 years of freedom and independence. Hall itself is shown with exquisite detail, capturing the colonial architecture that stood as a witness to the birth of a nation. The design also includes a small depiction of the bell tower with the clock showing the time around 4 o'clock, referencing the era of the signing of the Declaration. This coin was struck in both clad composition for circulation and in 40% silver for collectors, creating two paths for Americans to hold a tangible reminder of the bicentennial. The D mint mark indicates that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most productive mints in the United States mint system. Millions of these coins were struck, but despite the high mintage, many people saved them away as keepsakes of the bicentennial year. This is why, while they are common in circulated, of these coins were struck, but despite the high mintage, many people saved them away as keepsakes of the bicentennial year. This is why, while they are common in circulated condition, finding high-grade examples or those struck in special collector sets can still bring significant value for collectors today. But beyond its physical design and rarity, what makes the 1776 to 1976 D. Kennedy half dollar so captivating is the time in which it was minted. The mid-1970s were a transformative period in American history. The Vietnam War had just ended. Watergate had shaken the political trust of the nation, inflation, and economic struggles were affecting families across the country. Yet in the midst of these challenges, the bicentennial celebration was an opportunity for Americans to come together to reflect on their shared past and to celebrate the endurance of the nation. This coin captured that very spirit. Each time someone held this $half, they were reminded of 200 years of struggle, progress, and resilience. To create a 2-hour-long exploration, we can dive deeper into multiple themes. The first theme is the evolution of the Kennedy $half itself, tracing its origins from 1964 through the various changes in composition, mintages, and collector interest leading up to the bicentennial. The second theme is the bicentennial celebration as a cultural phenomenon, discussing the parades in Washington, the tall ships in New York, the fireworks in Philadelphia, and how the entire nation participated in events that reaffirmed patriotism. The third theme is the artistry of the coin itself, examining Seth Huntington's life, career, and the way his design was selected through a national competition where thousands of artists submitted their ideas. We can also examine the economics of the coin because the 1970s were a period of rising inflation which made the $half less common in everyday transactions. This scarcity in circulation gave the bicentennial $half a unique role as it was often hoarded by the public. Another dimension worth exploring is the coin. Its place in popular culture as it appeared in commemorative sets, was advertised in magazines, and became a popular gift or keepsake for families. For collectors today, the 1776 to 1976 D $half has multiple layers of value. There is the intrinsic historical value of owning a piece of the bicentennial celebration. There is the numismatic value tied to grade, condition, and errors, and there is also the emotional value of nostalgia for those who lived through the 1970s and remember vividly the pride of America's 200th birthday. While millions exist coins in pristine, uncirculated condition or those with special features like proof strikes command premium prices in auctions and coin shows. In telling the story of this coin, we are really telling the story of America at a crossroads. In 1976, the nation was young enough at 200 years to still be shaping its identity, but old enough to look back at too.